Well, hello everyone. I'm Ron Woerner with Cyber-AAA, and with me is Jules Okafor. Jules, say hi to everyone. Tell them where you're from, who you're with.
Hi, everybody. It's Juliet Okafor, and I'm in Washington, D.C.
Very good. How's the weather in Washington these
It's a
days?
beautiful sunny day, but of course, everyone's home, so I can watch it from the window.
Exactly. Well, it's rainy here in Omaha, so we're all stuck inside even more. It's been fun watching all my neighbors get out and go for walks in the evening. But that's why we are here. It's because we're all seeing a common challenge today. We're required to work from home, that WFH that everyone has kind of been dreading to do, or at least a lot of organizations have been moving towards that because of the recent events with the coronavirus, and etc. Just trying to keep everybody safe. So when Juliet and I were just chatting, we decided that there's a lot of common challenges we are seeing. So Jules, what are some of the challenges you see with this work from home scenario?
Well, being a mother of two children, it's been interesting to work alongside my family and managing family time, becoming a teacher. So we're doing homeschooling, in addition to ensuring that I'm connected to my team, my employees. That's been a difficult balance to manage. Also, how much is too much communication? Trying to manage, ensure that people feel like I'm reaching out to them, I'm checking in on them while I'm still getting all my work done. Managing that's been very interesting.
Yes, it's a new environment where we're used to just in a regular office, you can just get up from your chair and meet with people. Now it's a little different. There's so many different ways you can actually go and talk to people that and you don't know whether you're disturbing them or not. And those are all the different types of topics we'll be covering in today's webinar slash podcast. Remote work is the new black. So again, hi, I'm Ron Woerner, Chief Security Evangelist with Cyber-AAA, and with me is Juliet Okafor. And Juliet, tell us a little bit about Revolution Cyber.
So, Revolution Cyber is a design firm. We focus on integrating security awareness programs for a global audience. Most of the work that we do is about introducing the behavioral impact. So how do we have an impact on users that empowers them to take security as part of their individual responsibility, but it also empowers them to share and connect around the topic of security, both increasing the brand of security inside the organization and also ensuring a unified message. My company's focus on what we like to call the mind share model. So how do we increase the amount of time spent, thoughts about cybersecurity within the workplace?
Very good. Yeah, and that's very important, not just today with the work from home type of scenario, but always. How do we connect with people? How do we make our message, whether it's about cybersecurity and safety, stick with our end users? Well, and hi folks, I'm Ron Woerner, Cyber-AAA, where I focus on assurance, providing assessments to my clients, dealing with those compliance issues, data privacy, of course, cybersecurity, and even compliance. So the AAA means I provide assurance, assessments, answers, as well as awareness and action. So let's dive into our topic. What do you say there, Juliet?
That sounds good. I wanted to kind of step back. So a lot of the time, when we're having conversations, Ron and I just normally, we talked about perhaps not having this webinar focus on the coronavirus. Everyone's hearing about that. People are using FUD to scare people. What we want to do is figure out how do we take a bad situation and make it positive? How do we, while people are, destined to work from home, allow them to expand their skills, allow them to do better in their job, and also to be more productive in their work life. So a lot of the discussions we'll have today are about three areas, as you can see. The first one being virtual leadership. And we'll talk a little bit about that really, really stemmed from Ron, and he's got a way in which he advises that people do this. Always be communicating. So how do you stay connected while still productive? We want to talk through that. It would be great when we're talking about that. If you have questions, just ask them. And we're happy to answer those. And then finally, the way in which the world works, the new normal, it requires us to adopt a new view of work. We've got to step outside, take walks. We've got to integrate some of the things that typically were left for other parts of our lives in which we compartmentalize. They're all coming together. So we've got to adopt a new worldview. Ron?
Your audio got a little bit garbled during that. Maybe if you can try it again. There we go.
Given that we're all at home and we have so many different parts of our lives that are now merged together, how do we adopt a new work view? How do we take a different view of life where we're managing our priorities, we're getting our work done, but we're also stepping outside and actually enjoying our time outside? All of this in the same environment. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation about that as well.
Yes. So a lot of different areas to talk about, including how do you handle these technical glitches that occasionally pop up. You're in the middle of a meeting and all of a sudden the technology is just not behaving. How do you work through that so you can still have productive meetings? So I love this topic, Juliet, and I'm really excited to dive into it with you. So we're going to start with, you see the introduction on the screen. We're talking about that virtual leadership, how to always be communicating, ABC, and then adopting a new world work view. So let's talk about virtual leadership. And I know leadership is near and dear to your heart, Juliet. So what's the difference between a face-to-face leader and someone who's just there virtually?
So there actually, if you think about it, there doesn't really need to be a difference between a virtual leader and a face-to-face leader. In my mind, when you're a leader, you lead in every situation. So with the idea of virtual leadership, we have to start to embrace this idea that we've got to figure out how to be present and to provide leadership in new and different innovative ways. So for instance, typically a leader in a meeting is the one who, comes, sets the agenda, they talk.
And I just lost you, Juliet. You still with us? She is now frozen. This is the nice thing, why you always have a backup, even in presenters, because if one goes down, you have someone else who can pick up the slack, which is actually an important part of leadership, is training your own replacement. For example, with this type of a scenario where we have multiple hosts, but if I'm a leader of a company where I have someone else who can step right in and take over for me if I'm not available. So let's just say, God forbid, I do end up getting ill. Someone else should be able to do my job for me. Take over, whether I'm a director, whether I'm an analyst, whatever your role. The next topic, as you saw with the virtual leadership, one that I find fascinating. So how do you connect with people both in real life and when you're doing it virtually? And virtual is a little bit more of a challenge because in real life, you can just get up out of your chair, walk to someone else's office or cube and just start a conversation, right? Well, now we don't quite have that capability. So the way to do it is what's called virtual management by wandering around. So virtual management by wandering around is like the management by wandering around you do in the office. And I'm going to take a quick time out. So if one of the Revolution Cyber folks can just let Juliet know that I'm still moving forward and she should just join us again as soon as she gets back on. So
Will do.
Thank you. Virtual management by wandering around. So the way I do it, how do I connect to my remote team? It's like we do in real life, but it's through those short little interactions. It's like you can do it through a Twitter, you can do it through a LinkedIn message, instant message, you can do it through the phone. Jules just sent me a text saying, hey, I just got lost, which of course happens. But you keep that dialogue open. But it's just a quick comment to them. Hey, did you see the news about? It does not have to be work related. Virtual management by wandering around is just a way to make sure you're showing all of your employees that you've connected with them. Again, it's similar to how we can do it face to face, but just doing it virtually. And as a manager, don't be afraid about bugging your employees. Welcome back, Juliet. I'm just talking about virtual management by wandering around. If you want to put back up the presentation,
Yes.
I'll let you jump back in.
Allow me to share.
Yes. So let me just finish up. So the way to do it, I do this with my students as well, it's just a quick little ping. Hey, how are you? Hey, have you seen this assignment? How are you doing meeting your goals for today? One of the tools I really enjoy using is the 1 Minute Manager. the quintessential leadership book from Blanchard and Johnson, written a long time ago, where you have the 1-minute goal setting, the 1-minute improvement, and the 1-minute success stories. As a manager, start each day with a quick 1-minute goal setting. And this is part of the virtual management by wandering around. And then you can also, as you're having these conversations, remind people what they're doing well. As a leader, we really tend to forget that. We think our job is to only tell people what they have to improve or where they're going wrong. But no, people like that little quick idea. And when you're giving a compliment, make sure you're very specific on what you're complimenting. Don't just say, "Wow, Juliet, you're looking great today." Does that imply she didn't look great yesterday? No, of course not. But be very specific with it. Same thing when you're giving areas of improvement. Be very specific. So did you want to reshare out the presentation, Juliet?
I do. I'm still not the host.
Got to remake you the host.
Yes.
And this is all part of this leadership, requires a lot of communication. And you can't be afraid of communicating and of showing the people you're with that you're communicating. Like, we'll show you all everything we're doing behind the curtains. So Juliet, you should now be the host and you should now have that capability.
I am pulling it up now.
And we're just using the presentation to help focus what we're talking about.
And I think it might be helpful, actually, Ron, to talk through what we discussed about having it be auditory, visual, and then also doing it tactile.
Great point. So if you notice, Juliet and I are both on the screen. So for those who are visual learners, you can see. That's why we have a PowerPoint as well for those visual learners. The auditory learners, those are the ones who really dig the podcast, right? They are just listening and they learn through their ears. As opposed to the tactile, you have to give them an assignment to do. So, for example, for those who are involved in the group chat, you can use the group chat to talk about what do you experience as your biggest pain point with remote work. So this is not required, but if you're involved with the chat, please go ahead and type in the chat your biggest pain points, and we'll make sure Juliet and I are covering them during this talk. So did that cover what you were looking for, Juliet?
It does. It does. I think, as my Zoom failed, my computer had done auto updates. A lot of times when you're in meetings, you'll also find that things won't happen the way they traditionally would happen if you were in person. But leadership requires that despite that, we allow people to make mistakes. We are helping them to advance the way that they are behaving and what they're actually providing, by them to perhaps sometimes fail. And the only way to do that is actually to better understand the people who are following us. How do we help them by providing them the right tools? How do we help them by providing them the right guidance? And really, I think we move into this idea of coaching, right? What are the things that they do good? And it kind of supports what you were saying, Ron. What are the things that they could do better? And being very specific about the feedback that they're getting. And also providing enough time to allow people to make transitions. So as people are moving into a remote workforce, things will not be perfect. The first day, I'd say Monday, when everyone was forced to go into a meeting, when everyone was forced to go to Zoom, it was impossible. Because now, everyone was required to use this conferencing technology. And so it won't be perfect. And in that, we still got to find ways to actually have meetings, continue connecting, and making sure that we're providing on an ongoing basis tools and guidance techniques our employees, our friends, our colleagues use in order to maintain their sense of community. And also, how do we help them to continue to help us to be better employees, better
leaders,
neighbors,
better
and friends,
managers, right? That 360
exactly.
Feedback as well. What can each of us be doing better? Because we're all works in progress. We all have areas of improvement, and some of it, like we're seeing with this technology, is still not always perfect. So not demanding perfection with what we're doing, but understanding that we're all learning and growing. And this is what I look at with my students. So that's great ideas there, Juliet. And that's what we're hoping to do with today's webinar slash podcast, give you ideas, whether you're a technician, analyst, manager, team lead, or director, on what you can be doing better. Did you have any other thoughts on virtual leadership there, Juliet?
No, not this time.
So jumping into that, always be communicating. So what are the different ways you communicate with your team, Juliet?
So we have moved to several technologies. One, of course, is Microsoft Teams. That's a place that is formally designed for anyone using Outlook 365. We also use WhatsApp, and the value of WhatsApp as communication is that it makes it much more easy to communicate, share pictures. It feels less employee-based. It feels much more collaborative and team-based, and it allows you to personalize a lot of the communication. So we rely on that quite a bit. Our team is also leveraging things like Skype and really utilizing videos, memes, and pictures more. So we're trying our best to leverage email, as much as possible, but we're finding that there are other applications and other tools and technologies that build community and allows on much easier.
Yes. So it's using all these different types of media, whether it's the multimedia with the video, the audio. I mean, we still have our phones, so actually phone calls still work just fine in the work from home, but being able to collaborate across multiple people. And that's where tools like WhatsApp, like Slack, there's numerous ones I'm finding that are out there. Basecamp is another, and Teams. Great ways to have group conversations and that are more real time as opposed to email, where you send the email and then you sit and wait for someone and are they ever going to answer my email, where you can send a quick note. I think part of this too is being open and saying if you are in the middle of working. Because sometimes we're heads down, we have something we want to get done within the hour, within the day, and it's like, okay, time out, don't bug me. So, but just being honest and say, tell you what, let me work on this for the next hour, and then we'll chat next hour. So, and not being afraid. I know I tend to be really shy about that, but it's okay just to say, hey, let's talk a little bit later. You don't just push people off and say, yeah, just leave me alone, I'll talk to you some other time. That's kind of off-putting, right? But if we say, okay, I'm in the middle of a webinar right now, how about at the top of the hour we talk? And that way you're putting some time limits on it, because a lot of these tools can be very distracting. So how do you deal with those distractions, Juliet?
So I want to step back for a second.
Sure.
I want to talk about this idea of communicating boundaries.
Ooh, yeah.
And a lot of what we're talking about, even as we think about virtual leadership and always be communicating, I would say a lot of therapists are communicating this to, married couples, but really it's about relationship building, right? And so communicating your availability as well as communicating, concerns, challenges, or really places where you want to set priorities with people is really important during this time, because as I said, there's so many things that are connecting and merging at the same time. People can't see those things anymore. So if you were to walk into an office when you were busy, you could close your door. Now you've got to indicate, like you can via Skype or via even Zoom. My calendar automatically puts up do not disturb for all of my meetings, but unless you're sharing that with people, they don't know that. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do is communicate where your boundaries are, but also communicate things that are priorities to you. And it allows people to figure out how best to connect with you. And then mm-hmm. also it allows you to ensure that you're maintaining yourself as a priority during this time. With regard to communication and your question, Ron.
Oh, with distractions, yes.
Yes, some of the ways in which I am personally finding that communication has kind of been improved, by coming home is that a lot of times, when you're in an office, there is so much to do. I think now with communication, I can be very set lines and I can be very clear with who I want to talk to. I can set an agenda up front and clearly communicate that to someone, and then we can say we're going to spend 20 minutes on X. I find actually being at home and remote work, that people are actually collaborating more. So beyond communication, we're actually working together more because we have to be respectful of different managing our priorities, but also we also have to start to understand each other outside the workplace. And I think this can be seen, remote work, as a benefit, as a value, because we're learning more about ourselves. We're also able to really see how best to understand and appreciate the ways in which other people are. The communication part of this be so critical to ensuring success as one works from home.
No, those are all really great points. Understanding yourself, blocking off your own time. That's what I've begun to do a number of years ago. Is when I want an hour to work on a particular project, I'll put it on my calendar. This is what I actually recommend to my students as well. Block off time to get your homework done. Works when we're at work too.
Yeah.
Particularly now that we're kind of changing the paradigm where work is not just from 8 to 5 anymore, but it really can span multiple other hours. But yeah, it's understanding that self-care as well. I love that point as well. One of the other points I wanted to bring up with this ABC, always be communicating, is over communicate. Kind of brought this up earlier, where it's okay to be transparent. If you're the boss, be transparent with your employees. If something's not right, with yourself that you need to be working on better, it's okay to speak about your flaws and where you have room for improvement and what you're doing to improve yourself, and maybe how your employees can help you with that improvement. Yes. So it's always reaching out for feedback as well as part of that communications loop. One other little point I wanted to bring up with this in terms of we're now dealing a lot more with being on camera. I'm actually thinking it'd be a great idea to take a broadcast class, like at a college, because I'm doing that more and more. For example, when you're on camera, if you notice, I'm looking directly into the little dot in the middle of my camera, and I'm doing that on purpose because this makes it feel like I'm connecting directly with my audience. And the idea is you want each of the people you're connecting with to feel a personal connection with you. A little tip I did get from a TV producer once. Well, you know how the camera, they say it adds 10 pounds? Well, he said, yeah, that's kind of true, but really it'll also take away 10% of your personality. So what I've learned to do, and if you watch really good broadcasters, not saying I'm one of them, but watch the broadcasters, they are really emphatic on what they're saying, showing a lot more gestures and voice inflections. And I do that on purpose because I want it to appear more animated, more personal to you. So Juliet, what other tips do you have for the always be communicating?
Well, I'm a student of media. I've been doing media and camera for years. I think soft skills will become really, really critical. So how it is, talking about what Ron said, it's become really, really important that we adopt a personality that people can connect with. And there are ways to do this via broadcast. But I also think if you're somebody who, I'm becoming more and more introverted, but you're introverted, even on one-on-ones, right? I think the key is adopting a style that makes people feel like you are one with them, that you are tuned into them. I think people more and more want to feel like they can feel you, they can touch you, you're close enough for them to actually trust. So what I typically like to do is I really like to think about, if I were the other person, I put myself in their shoes, how would I want to be communicated with? And then I try to adopt that style, especially in leadership. A lot of what I've been told over the years is you should in some ways mirror the person you're talking to. So if and I tend to do this geographically, I find, in the South, there tends to be, more calm, a more laid back approach to speaking. And I'm from New York City. So I've had to learn to speak a little slower, to speak a little more clearer, and then also not to be as formal, right? So I think always be communicating is critical, but we have to think about the ways in which non-verbally we're also communicating. We need to be very aware of what we're saying, how we're saying it, and making sure that we take the other person into consideration as we're communicating as well.
I mean, these are all different pain points we are seeing, not just in regular office work, but they're being enhanced now that we're doing all of this remote work, it seems. So it's understanding the pace at which people speak or they work too. And then I love the idea, because this comes directly from cybersecurity, human hacking, and social engineering, the idea of not mimicking, but mirroring how they speak, their tone. If you're with someone who speaks quietly, maybe you don't speak as loud. Or if they're more bombastic in their approach, you kind of just join them where they are. The idea is we meet people where they are, because then that makes us, again, seem more personal. These are great tips there, Juliet. I think we're bridging into that adopt a new work view.
Well, it'd be interesting to see, do we have any questions from anyone in the...
I don't see any on the chat at this point. And I also put this question out on Twitter. What are those pain points? And if we get a chance near the end, I'll bring up some of those that I've seen through Twitter and LinkedIn when I posted this question early on, because that's what we want folks to do. We don't want this just to be a one and done, but continue the conversation with Juliet and myself, not just during this, but as you're watching it. You can always send questions to us, connect with us through LinkedIn or through Twitter or email. Our contact information will be at the end. So, yeah, we're in a new worldview, and it seems kind of odd. Working from home, we could work in our pajamas, but what do you think about that? Do you think it's good for people to work in their jammies there, Juliet?
No. I'll admit, when I first started working from home, I thought I was the luckiest person because I could do that. But what I found is that when I did get dressed up, I adopted a different attitude. I felt like, when I got dressed, and I didn't put on a suit, but I just get dressed as I would if I were going to the office. Mm-hmm. And I took myself more seriously. I wasn't afraid to jump on a phone call or jump on a video chat because I knew I'd be ready regardless of, what came at me. And so I suggest these days, if you can, keep your routine. Get dressed up in the morning, come to the meetings, at least fully made up for work office from the top down, and make it so that, when people see you, you look and they experience you in the way they typically would. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be a good idea to, have a whole different approach, come in with, jammies, and then all of a sudden go back to work and, want to be seen as a leader. I think just naturally, people expect to see you in a certain way. You should have the same expectation for yourself. And I think you should keep yourself up even as you're working from home.
No, those are great points, because it's about attitude. If you remember when we were little kids, you play dress up, and when you put on the different clothes, you take on a different persona. I think that's similar to wearing business clothes. And kind of what I like about this too, is that I did have on my hacker hoodie for most of the morning, but I was able to quickly jump into my closet, put on nice dress clothes. So it allows for almost a quick change wardrobe depending on who you're talking to. So that kind of gets back to that previous point you made, Juliet. Depending on the client I'm talking to on the other end, if they tend to dress down, I can mirror how they dressed rather quickly here at home. It's hard to bring change of clothes with you to work. So really a lot of little advantages. I liked how you also mentioned about that routine. So you're recommending people kind of keep the same schedule that they would as if they were working in the office, correct?
Yes, well, if you can. So for me, one of the things I had to do was actually adopt a schedule that integrated my children's schedule. Mm-hmm. So as a mother, I'm actually co-managing both myself and my children. And so what I've tried to do is definitely block time in the traditional ways I would, but I'm also allowing time for family time, because what I want to do is I also want to start to transition my lifestyle to meet my children. So while I am keeping my routine with my work, I've had to be flexible to allow for myself to spend time with my children, because now they're closer, they're at home. So it really is about setting a routine that works for you in your new life, but having one that you commit to, Monday through Friday at least, that you can say is predictable, so that other people can actually predict when you will be available to them as well.
That's a great point about that predictability for other people, so they know how and when they can contact you. And if you're busy with your kids, that you're kind of in a timeout and you're taking personal time during the day. What I found, I've been working from home on and off for about 10 years, is that I sometimes will work from 7 in the morning until 8 at night. But it's not a consecutive 13, 14 hours. I'll get up, work for a while, then go work out, go eat lunch, and then work longer. And then, if I'm a little sleepy in the afternoon, I might even take a nap, which actually then makes me more energized in the evening to finish my work. So it's more based, and this is a tip for any managers, directors, team leads online, where allow that flexibility. It's not about showing up at a particular hour. It's, are we getting our goals done that we said we were going to accomplish for that particular day? And whether you're doing it consecutive 8 hours or you do time splicing throughout, it enables a lot more personal time to intermingle. But isn't there a little bit of a danger there too, where you can end up overworking or underworking?
Well, I've worked remote for a long time, and it's a struggle. One of the things that I'm very clear about is that burning the candles at both ends helps no one in the end. And so what I advise, my clients and my customers to do is, like I said, set that routine. But what I would also say is be flexible, right? So we don't have to work the traditional 9 to 5 anymore. I think what we're also advising, and I don't think we brought up in the virtual leadership part, is we need to, as leaders, allow our employees and those we manage to manage themselves, but also hold them accountable for delivering the result. And on the other hand, it allows them to adopt a work style that fits with their new normal. I think many times employees feel like I have to check in, I have to make sure people can see me. That means that when people are still working, I need to still be working. That's not true. No. What if you're getting your work done in a shorter time frame? So what you want to do is communicate to your boss that you don't require the same amount of time and that you are changing your schedule, but you won't fail to deliver in the ways that he or she expects. And I think as long as we're communicating those things, people have to work in the way that best suits them. I find from 6 to 9, it's core family time. So I will typically from 9 to 12 midnight, finish the work that I wasn't able to finish in the daytime. And at the end of the day, I know it's done better. And actually I can go to sleep knowing that I've done what I was supposed to do, but I also spent the time with the family that's really critical to me. Yeah. So we want to make sure as fathers, as mothers, as, even with ourselves, with this idea of self-care, whatever the time blocks are that you're most productive, delegate those times to the most difficult work. And then what we also want to do is communicate to our managers that they will get the things they're expecting and there will be no delay.
And again, great point. I know with my challenge, though, sometimes I spend a lot of time working. I tend to be a workaholic. So I think that's also important to hold each other accountable for it. If you see someone who's online, almost consecutively for 12 straight hours, I don't know if you've ever done this with your team, Juliet, but you just say, all right, you're done for today. Because you kind of begin to hurt your own efficiency. After a while, you just become overtired and you maybe not be as effective the following days. So, and it doesn't always just have to be the boss telling the worker. Sometimes I've done this to my boss. It's like, all right, you put in all of your time. Don't you need a break? Yeah.
Exactly. Too many of us forget how important it is to take a break.
Yes. Yep. So I think that's another great, as we're changing how we're working. Again, it can be for the better. It seems like we're in a very dark period of the United States and the world right now, but this could be a silver lining where more companies now allow for this remote work, allowing for a different style of worker. For example, I'm a morning person. My energy and strength is most in the morning. So if I'm going to write or do heavy work, I'm doing it in the morning. I'm not like you, Juliet. From 9 to midnight, my brain is mush. And I'll tell you that if you're like, let's jump on a meeting, in the evening, it's like, okay, just don't expect me to think too hard. But I have other people I work with, they are best from 9 to midnight.
Yes.
Yeah. So it really enables us to use where our strengths are rather than everyone to fit into the same type of bucket.
And you're always talking, Ron, about your pet peeve. What is that?
Oh, you mean the time zones? Yes, so I have numerous little pet peeves. Now, when talking about a time, so Juliet's over on the East Coast, I'm Central, but we're worldwide now. So when you're saying let's meet at 2 p.m., put the time zone you're referring to. Because I think this has happened to most of us, where you say let's meet at 2, Juliet's meeting at 2, and I'm meeting at 2, and we're an hour apart. So seriously, put the ET, CT, MT, PT, or whatever it is around the globe, because as we become more of a global society, this way we understand not only where we are, but when we are.
Yes.
So, what other
And
tips did you have, Juliet?
so I would say last year I took on the very lofty goal of traveling at least twice a month, and I was on the road, and I did not take care of myself. And what I committed to was, taking time off the road to be home, but to committing to exercise. I think it's very easy now that gyms are closing, now that we're hearing all this, scares about, being out, to stay indoors and to not try to stay active and healthy. I really, really recommend that. And all the feedback and all the notes I'm getting from professionals is keeping your mind active is just as important as keeping your body active. We have to go outdoors, take a walk. More and more, and in my community, people never used to come out of their houses. I'm finding more and more people just walking around the park, doing jumping jacks. I find a lot more people are doing jumping jacks. Do videos on YouTube in the house. But what you don't want to do is use this as a time where you can kind of let yourself go. We all need to be focused on keeping our mind and our bodies active.
No, that is a great point. Something I've found, this almost ties back to a first point with that virtual leadership too, is you can take walks with people. I mean, we still want to do the social distancing, which you can do. I mean, but yeah, you can take a walk with somebody, maybe even if you're close enough to one of your employees, and you can have the casual conversation and make it a part of it. Or even what I'm seeing actually online too, you can have a group exercise with your team. Maybe the start of the meeting, and I've actually done this. We're sitting after a while. I do this more with my classes, and my classes sometimes are 3 hours. And it's like, okay, we've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes. Everybody stretch. It might seem weird and wild, but it actually is very healthy, not only for our bodies, but our brains. It gives our subconscious brain a break, and a chance to catch up as well. So there's a lot of little benefits to the exercise. So again, as managers, leaders, remind your employees, make sure they're silly things like make sure you're eating healthy. It can be really hard now. Make sure you're getting sunlight and exercise, and just that self-care. Again, we need to help out each other as we're going through this time, because many of us feel isolated. And maybe that'll be our last little point. What other tips do you have if you're feeling isolated, Juliet, or you see you have a team member who may be isolating themselves a little bit too much?
So and I'll say this, and the reason why I'm always referring back to the fact that I am extroverted is a lot of the outreach and keeping in touch is very easy for me. And what I find though is that when I get busy, I forget to reach out. So what I've done is I actually put time on the calendar to reach out to people on a regular basis. So you talked about virtual management by wandering around. I spend a lot of time sending text messages. Hey, just checking in to see how you're doing. Even with customers, I will send a note to myself at least once a week to make sure I stay in contact. And then LinkedIn is very easy. So if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on social media, you can just say, hey, how you doing? Because a lot of people are spending more time on social media. So the key is, where will you find people, that are not traditional ways like face-to-face? A lot of that's happening on social media. A lot of that is easily done through text. Or if you're looking to stay in communication with your team that you manage, I would say send them notes on Skype or Slack, or just every now and again. And if you're someone like me who gets really busy, set a timer to it. We remember things that we put on our calendar. Put it on a calendar and just keep up with it. It's just like everything else. It's important to do. If you want to remember it, you'll schedule it.
That's a great point. Keeping calendars up to date. Many of us have multiple calendars. I'm guilty of that, and I've combined them, focused on to one now. And then I share my calendar out so people know if they want to schedule time, whether it's just 5 minutes. Hey, can I bend your ear for 5 minutes? But it's just, if you see someone you haven't heard from in a while, it's okay to bug them. So often we're very afraid, and I get this with my students and occasionally with clients. It's like, well, I don't want to bug you. It's like, it's kind of what I'm here for. Don't hesitate to bug each other, with just quick questions. If something's not working well for you, it's okay to ask. There really are no stupid questions. So we've been covering a lot of the different pain points in just this quick little call here. Are there any other problems that you see, and how would you want to solve those?
So I would say the biggest issue that I see now is we are going to be inundated with lots and lots of emails with people offering to help who probably can't help, who are charging you to do things that perhaps, they never would have, and are leveraging this virus for things that aren't, the most positive. What I'm asking, many of us to do is shut a lot of that down, find one source that you trust and keep going back to the source for your information, but don't allow this situation to depress you. I feel like the situation we're in can create a lot of anxiety because we're getting different news sources mixed with misinformation, mixed with rumors. What we want to do is find the places that allow us to reset and that rejuvenate us and that keep us positive. And then, of course, watch the news, but take it all in consideration. In order for us to maintain leadership, we've got to be prepared to handle some of the things that are happening. We need to know what's coming, but we need to also make sure we're managing ourselves and how we're feeling so that we can maintain leadership and also maintain connections with other people. A lot of people will be looking to us as sources for support and confidence and to make them feel like the world isn't falling around us. I really am, asking people to just find ways to stay positive, to keep connecting with people, and don't lose sight of the fact that this too shall pass. We're in a tough time, but it will also pass. And what we want to do is, what do we want to say a year from now we took out of this situation that actually helped further us in our careers, in our lives, with our families, and with ourselves? Let's figure out those things and make sure we make them part of our everyday.
I love that idea, kind of keeping that forward view, thinking, in a year from now, what will we learn from all of this? So I think this will be a great learning experience for all of us and to grow in an area that maybe we never really thought about. Again, great tips. One other little point I just wanted to bring up, because Juliet, you and I are both in the cybersecurity online safety space. Is regards to online safety. There's some scams going around. There's always scams, the IRS scam, pay your taxes. There's now the COVID-19 scams, click here to learn more, or, hey, we believe you've been infected, click on this link or open this attachment. And it comes down to a very simple tip I have that if you're not sure, ask. When in doubt, check it out. When in doubt, check it out. Where, hey, Juliet, I just got this really weird email. It says it's from the FBI and they're going to arrest me because they think I've been infected and I've infected a lot of people. What do you think? And of course, Juliet, you're an SA.
I wouldn't open it. I would delete it.
Right. You just reach out to somebody else because sometimes they can be very intimidating and real, these social engineering attacks. It's your boss, saying, hey, we need you to send money. Double check. If you are the boss and your employee is asking, remind them that that's exactly what they should do. Don't just send money because someone said send money. Double check it. A vendor says you're past due on an invoice. You better send now or else we're conducting a lawsuit. Time out. Go ahead and reach out to them through another means. Pick up the phone. Don't just reply back to that email. So basic tips to keep ourselves safe online. Do you have any others there, Juliet?
I would, I guess one of my final points is leaders are born in crises. My career and a lot of the experiences that I've been able to benefit from in the short time I've been in cybersecurity are because I found an opportunity to lead in times when pretty much everybody walked away. Um, I am, even with the company, the market is telling me that I should probably close shop. Except that what I'm very clear about is the people who weather the storm, they're the ones who will benefit in the end. And so, regardless of what business you're in, what position you're in, when others, will hide, raise your hand. When others will step back, step forward. And the key will be you will be seen for doing the right thing at times when no one else wanted to do them. And I truly believe leaders are born in crises. This is a crisis, and this will be your opportunity to set yourself apart from all others.
Oh, that is just wonderful, wonderful stuff, Juliet. So what do you say we begin to wrap up? If we can go show our contacts. So we've covered a lot of topics. At this point, we ran into another technical glitch, which is what'll happen when you're working online. To summarize, in today's webinar, Juliet and I covered many of the pains and problems with remote work. Despite that, it's become the new normal, or the new black, as we put it. We are seeing changes in our culture, how we work, how leaders need to lead, how we all communicate, and how to stay safe, now that we're all online, more than ever. Juliet and I are here to help you overcome these pain points and provide solutions for you and your organization. Please reach out to Juliet and her company, Revolution Cyber, through her email, jules@revolutioncyber.com. Her LinkedIn is Jules Management, and Twitter @JulesMGMT. I'm Ron Woerner, Chief Security Evangelist of Cyber-AAA. You can reach me through my email, ronw@cyber-AAA.com. My LinkedIn is just my name, Ron Woerner, and my Twitter @RonW123. We're here to help, and we look forward to seeing you again. Until then, be safe.